Hi everyone, you're welcome to the Build Writing Podcast. In today's episode, we'll talk about, does your first draft really need to be perfect? Think again. So in today's episode, you're welcome back for those of you who've been following all through the challenge. Today's episode, we'll be looking at, does your first draft really need to be perfect? Yeah, does it really need to be perfect? Now today we'll be tackling that question, and by the end of this episode, you will understand why imperfect first drafts are not just okay, but essential to the writing process. Now, before we proceed, let me share a story about Ernest Hemingway. Now, there's this famous quote about Ernest Hemingway gave, and it was like, the first draft of anything is shit. And I think he was the one who said that writing is rewriting, you know. And it's so idea that it is in rewriting that you find that the first draft is a raw material for the finished product. It is a starting point. It is a way to concretize the ideas you have in mind, everything that is in your head, and bring it to life. That's what the first draft is. And so when you do that, you have something to work that is tangible. It's no longer in your head. You're like, this thing is not perfect, and you have nothing. You can send the work out for people to read and like, oh no, I don't like this stuff. You can look over it and rewrite it and work on it again and again and again and again and again. Now, most people believe that the first draft have to be perfect. There are writers who they write their first draft perfect. And that's understandable. But there are a lot of reasons why that is. Because some of them, they spend a lot of time thinking about the work. A lot of time that the work is absolutely written in their head. And when they sit down, they write the work. While for others, we are figuring out the work. Like while we're writing, we have no clue where the story is going to. And so even when we write the story, we are shocked that what happened to the story. We're like, how come this character died? We're like, dude, but you're the one who wrote the story. No. I didn't even know that was going to happen. I just followed the story. With first draft, the whole idea of editing brings into play that we get to rework and rework it. And with that for writing, for me, that's a fantastic thing, because with other forms of craft or other forms of creative endeavor, most of the times doing a second draft or third draft takes time and costs a lot of money. But writing, apart from the time, it doesn't really cost that much, because apart from time. Now, after you've done the first and second draft, you can then send your work out for other forms of proofreading and editing, like errors, spelling errors, punctuation, and all those things. You can get those ones done. But over time, you can rewrite the story and look at structure, character, and all those things, descriptions, and all those things, and rework those things in again. So that whole idea of perfectionism, that my first draft have to be perfect, and puts us in a place where we don't even get to write the first draft in the first place. Yeah, because the first draft will never, like for most of us, it will never be perfect. And so we don't even get to write. If you write the first page, you're like, oh, the story, the introduction, and you're just stuck in the introduction. Writing and editing are two different things. For editing, you need that distance to objectively start cutting things and looking at things and working and rewriting. And it's different, and it's a full exercise on its own where you can fully focus, rather than combining the writing and editing together such that everything is misleading. Guess what? When you're writing and editing, you can't make progress as much as you would make if you were just writing and then coming back to edit the work. Okay, first drafts are meant to be raw material, not finished products. So put in mind that first drafts are meant to be a starting point for my ideas. First draft is meant to be the beginning of my ideas. First draft is meant to be where I concretize my ideas. First draft is meant to be where I turn the idea, the dreams I have in my mind, into a reality. That is what first draft is meant to be. And so when you do that, when you understand that, and you're able to articulate and create such a scenario, what happens is that you're not so concerned about my first draft perfect, is my first draft the best. Instead, now what you're concerned about is, okay, how can I get a first draft out there, that fully represent my story, and then I get to work and rewrite each line. And rewriting is sweet. Like it's a tough decision, but it's sweet because you're working on something concrete. Yeah, writing is rewriting. Once you know that, you would understand that, and you will not stress yourself so much, because you realize that the first draft is just an attempt. The rewriting starts when you start rewriting, start cutting out things and restructuring and putting things in place. That itself is writing. So the question is, how can we embrace the imperfect first draft and improve our writing process? How can you embrace the imperfect first draft and embrace the writing process? How can you embrace the imperfect first draft? How can I embrace the imperfect first draft and improve my writing process. Because as much as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself too. So here are some strategies you could use. The first one is one, set a timer and write without stopping or editing. And I like the idea of Stephen King. He was like, oh, I'll sit down and write for 2,000 words, like for so and so time. And that was his goal, that was his target. And he would do that every day without fail. That itself forces you, because then what happens is that you need the story to be good in a way. Your brain starts to work in the background, in the subconscious, even without you knowing. And apart from that, you're able to quickly put the words down, and then you go back and you cut and you cut and you cut and you edit and you cut and you cut and you cut and you edit. And it's so much faster and less torturous than waiting for the first draft itself. Because what will happen is that 5 years will pass by and see your first draft will never have been written and you've made no progress. You've learned nothing. So next thing is, we want to use placeholders like research this later to maintain flow. So when you're writing, sometimes you might, oh, this, I need to use this particular name. Oh, I need to talk about this thing. Oh, I need to talk about this description. Oh, I need to make this allusion to such and such things. In such places, you could use what we call placeholders. So placeholders are simply, you just put in a specific kind of text that's probably in brackets or so, such that when you're editing, you can come back to that stuff and work on that and flesh that part out and rewrite that part out while you still write your story. So you get to complete your story and you can have more time, because oftentimes I've noticed that research itself can be a form of procrastination. Researching, now of course researching is important, and there are a lot of works that you need to write that you need research, like this you're doing historical fiction and all that. You need research in order to know what happened in history. How was it like? What was it like? What was happening? What was the weather like? What were people wearing? What were they saying? What language? How was, how did they speak? But research itself can be a form of procrastination. Like, the question is, how long do you research? How much is sufficient research? That's the thing. Because you're like, oh, I need to do this, and there'll be always a lot of stuff to check. Like, imagine if you were writing a story in World War One or World War Two. There's so many stuff to check out there. So many. So the thing is, when do I know that I have sufficient enough? And that's why at some point in time, when you've done a lot of research, you're like, okay, let's just start the story. And over time, you start seeing specific cases and specific instances where you need those research. And then you're like, okay, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And over time, you're able to create your story and then come back to those placeholders and edit them, rather than being stuck and not writing a story. And so the next thing is, we want to focus on quantity over quality in your first draft. So the first draft is just putting your words out there, most of which will never make it to the final product. But we just want to work quantity. We want to just write 100,000 words, even though we know that we'll cut that down to 70,000 words. We just want to write down, but we just want to put things out there and just write. Yeah, that's the goal. We just want to write. Even though that we know that most of the words will not make it out to the final product, but we know that this is our raw material. Just imagine most raw materials like how gold is made. Most of the things, there's so much waste that is removed from the gold itself. Oftentimes you have to, in order to make gold, you have to get the gold ore. Yeah. In order to make iron, you have to get the iron ore. Yeah. You have to get those things, because most of those things is garbage. Yeah, a lot of them you will not be needed. But then those things are gone through a refining process. In writing, your first draft is gone through a writing process. So the question is, we want to give ourselves a permission to create something. I said the whole idea of writing, we write, and when we are not doing that, I don't think there's something wrong. Yeah, when we're not doing that. So the next thing is, we want to celebrate completing our first draft, regardless of its perceived quality. Never forget that you can always edit a bad page, but you can never edit a blank page. Never forget that. So we want to celebrate the progress that, oh, I've completed the first draft, and now I edit it. Now I work on it. Now I rework on it. Yeah. So yeah, we want to celebrate every form of progress we make. That way we can keep making progress. I think the reward for hard work is more work. Yeah, that's in a way that's very true. So as best-selling author Anne Lamott says in her book Bed by Bed, almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. Yeah. You need to start somewhere, and that might mean a terrible first draft where you have no idea what you're doing, but you write anyway, where the dialogues are not written well, the characters are not described well and everything, but you write your first draft, and over time, working and rewriting the first draft, you get to learn all those skills of writing, and you get better, and then you create something that is wonderful. Okay, so your writing challenge for today is to write the worst possible opening paragraph for a story. Okay, I'll go over that again. Your writing challenge for today is to write the worst possible opening paragraph for a story. Make it as cliche, overwrought, or silly as you can. Share your gloriously awful paragraph on Twitter with the hashtag #EmbraceTheBadDraft on Twitter, or you can tag me at buildwriting.com. That's it, buildwriting. I don't know why I keep saying buildwriting.com. You can tag me, yeah. Just write, like, because once you make writing a terrible paragraph your goal, then I don't see, if you know that what you are afraid of was writing terrible stuff, then I'm like if you fail, you end up writing something good. If you write something, if you pass or whatever, or if you succeed, the goal was to write something terrible. Yes, at the end of the day, it will remove the whole pressure on the paragraph that has to be perfect and all that. Like, I want to write something terrible. That's the goal. And so you're like, how do you make it good? No, the goal is to make it terrible. Why do you think about something good? And what you could probably do is, after I write that first terrible paragraph, you can say, okay, how do I make it good? How do I make it better? That way you're able to sharpen your writing and editing skills, which will go a very long way. So do that, and let me know how it goes. Remember, your first draft is just you telling yourself the story. Perfection comes later, if at all. If it does come. It is you telling yourself the story. And oftentimes it's not fully formed, it's not figured out well, but it is just your first attempt at you telling yourself the story. So never forget that. So if this episode helped you let go of perfectionism, share it with a fellow writer who might be struggling with their first draft, and join us tomorrow. We'll be discussing whether you really need a completely original idea to start writing. You'll be surprised by the answer. Now, if you'd love to follow my writing progress and updates, please join the newsletter at buildwriting.com/newsletter, where once you join the newsletter, you get access to progress I'm making with my writing prompts and exercises you can practice with. And do join the family. That way you can respond to the emails, and I get them directly to my inbox, and I respond to your emails too. So that's that for that. Until next time, keep writing. I have been your host, Oyemichi Nwakona, and you've been listening to the Beauty Writing Podcast. Keep writing.